although it seems first glance that death is a natural thing on this planet and that everything on the planet dies, if you look closer you'll see that's not true. There are organisms that do not die or have the ability to not die, like the Hydra, which is a animal. It's a very small animal that lives in fresh water. It has stem cells that allow it to renew itself indefinitely. The jellyfish is another animal that doesn't have to die. It has a very similar, if not the same, capability. I think it might work a little different, but it, through asexual reproduction process, can just regenerate all of its cells over and over and over again as many times as it wants. It basically can start its lifespan with this process, and it can do it over and over and over again. It can do it forever. Of course, you know, we know that trees live a really, really, really long time, like the Methuselah tree. I think has lived over 5,000 years. But yeah, the big point is there are things that do not die, or that don't have to die if they don't want to. So, you really can't say that death is natural. If some things don't die, then it's also natural not to die. And so humans have reached a point in our evolution to where we're smart enough to figure out how to end the aging process. And so people say, well, that's not natural. You know, you're playing God and stuff like that. But I'll first address whether or not it's natural. Playing God thing, I'll get to in another video. Is it not natural to end aging through bioengineering? Well, is it not natural for a bird to fly? Is it not natural for a wasp to make paper? You know, those are abilities that they have through unconscious evolution. Evolution, everybody would say, is natural. That was not interfered with by humans. So humans naturally evolved brains that have the ability to make airplanes and make skyscrapers and make automobiles and end aging. So if it's not unnatural for a bird to fly, an ability that he got from evolution, natural evolution, why is it unnatural for a human to use our high cognitive function, our great brains, to do stuff if our brains are a product of natural evolution as well? Unconscious evolution. It's the same thing. And it seems like, you know, it might even be kind of, you know, people say there's no goal to evolution, whatever. However you want to see that, I don't know. If you don't want to believe there's a goal to evolution, there has to be a critical point, though, because it's my experience that in survival of the fittest, or from my observation, the most fit way to be is to cooperate and to have unconditional love and to work together to make things better. We've done that increasingly more and more over the years, but we're at a point now to where we have the capacity to even kind of redesign ourselves to be more in line with unconditional love. And we can create a society that's based on cooperation. I guess what I'm trying to say is that in evolution, because of survival of the fittest, eventually you would make creatures that have unconditional love and that cooperate and that are very intelligent and that, you know, because that is the most fit way to be. That is the most successful. Any organism that practices those things will be the most successful. Like Christopher Hitchens tries to say that we only work in selfishness. He wrote a whole book on the selfish gene, and said that basically DNA works to do the best thing for itself. But there's a lot of DNA out there. It's in every cell that we possess. It is part of us. We are DNA, really. And so if DNA is working for itself, then really it's working for everyone. And you could call that selfish, but you know, eventually that selfishness of the DNA, if you want to look at it that way, will turn into self-sacrificing, unconditional love. And not just self-sacrificing, it'll be both self-sacrificing and quote-unquote selfish at the same time, because when you do what's good for others, you're doing what's good for yourself. So eventually evolution, and I think we're at that point now, will reach a point to where you know, the most fit attributes, which are unconditional love, cooperation, and intelligence, succeed and take over. And so, anyway, it is the most natural thing to do to, you know, use spirituality to develop those things, which we already possess, divine qualities, to bring those out more and to work on those. And then to use science to end the aging process with our highly intelligent brains, because why would we want to die if we don't have to? I'm going to get into the problems that I know you're thinking immediately when I just asked that question, like overpopulation, which is the biggest question that people have, the biggest complaint that they have, in another video. But anyway, I want to talk about scientific research today. Now, I've already told you that there's organisms like the jellyfish and the Hydra that don't have to die, and I believe Hydra just don't, I mean, they do die, but they die by being attacked, you know. Anyway, there's a lot of research being done. For instance, there's a researcher named David Sinclair who has found this chemical, it's called nicotinamide mononucleotide, or NMN for short, that activates sirtuins in the body, and these sirtuins, they help us to defy aging. And so, in a study on mice, he gave like mice the equivalent of 80 human years, this chemical called NMN, and it restored their brain tissue and their muscle tissue to that of like a 21-year-old human in mice years. That's a huge breakthrough. I think they're doing human trials for that now, so we're going to know if it works on humans very soon. Another thing they've done is they have doubled the lifespan of a fruit fly. So if you can double the lifespan of a fruit fly, maybe you could do the same in humans. And there's some researchers working on that. A lot of people saw a report to where they said they reversed aging in mice. And, you know, these mice, their aging wasn't natural aging. So it was, they had turned off a gene that codes for an enzyme called telomerase. Telomerase, without getting into a lot of detail, keeps us from aging rapidly. So they turned this off. Telomerase, as you get older, your body makes less and less of it, and so you start to age. But they turn this gene off in these mice at birth, and so they age very rapidly. But what's interesting is when they turn the telomerase gene back on in these same mice, it reversed the aging process. Their hair got fuller again, their muscles went back to youth, their brain function improved, and that's pretty incredible if you understand how telomerase interacts with telomeres in the body. Let's see, with some of the other research. There is a scientist named Aubrey de Grey who believes that in the next 25 to 30 years, we're going to end aging. And his approach is a little different than some of these other ones, whereas many are looking for like a kind of a miracle drug or a miracle diet or lifestyle. He's just looking to repair tissues as they age and are damaged. So he often gives the example of it being like a car. You know, if you continue to work on a car as it gets old and starts to break down, it can run indefinitely. If the engine's bad, you replace the engine. If the alternator goes bad, you put a new alternator on. If the tires go bad, and we do this even when cars aren't aging. You put new tires on. You just keep putting new parts on, and it never will stop running. So he thinks that the body, which is a biological machine, and if you want to look at it that way, I mean it is, and from one vantage point, that you can do the same with the body. You know, as skin tissue goes bad, well, you can't rip all your skin off and put it back on, but you can replace those cells with stem cells or something. Who knows? And same with the liver, same with the heart, same with everything. And he's working on a way, I believe, to not do that, to be able to do it without having to do like invasive surgery. There are a lot of scientists working on this. Problem is, because it's such a new science and it seems so out there to some, it doesn't get enough funding. But I say that because we need to give it a lot of funding. But recently, Google actually started funding anti-aging research. Research to end aging. So that's a pretty huge thing. I personally believe that we will find the cure to aging and death and all the illnesses that come with it. Because, we're not just fighting death. When you stop aging, you also stop Alzheimer's disease. You also stop cancers that develop as you get older. You stop the degradation of eyesight. You stop hearing loss. You stop, diabetes. So we're not just talking about growing old and being gray and never dying and being sick and in this awful state all the time. We're talking about being eternally young, healthy, vibrant, enjoying your life, and that's pretty awesome. It would really change everything about, well, we'd have to change everything about society, everything. I mean, like, you wouldn't have, nobody would be caring about Social Security anymore. Nobody would be saving for the future, for when they died, to give something for their children. People might not be that worried about having children, because you're going to live forever. Why would you need to, procreate necessarily? I mean, you might want to eventually, and like I said, I'm going to talk about this in another video. We'd have to worry about overpopulation, but endless time on this earth, and on other planets eventually, and it is a real possibility. Now, a lot of scientists believe in God and have a form of spirituality. Some are staunch atheists, but I think that a spiritual person should, I'm not saying they have to, because spirituality is very deep. You could spend your whole lifetime just learning about that, and you never stop learning. But I think that the spiritual people should pursue science and pursue it with the goal of ending suffering and death and sickness on this planet. And in the next video, I'll talk about why that's not playing God, and why it's not presumptuous to think that God would want humans to play a part in ending aging on this planet. Like Revelation 21, I think 1 through 4 said that the tent of God will be with mankind, and He will be with them, and He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There would be no more mourning, nor outcry, nor pain. And He said that there would be no death. There would be no crying, there would be no death. The former things had passed away. A person reads that scripture and they think, well, that's saying that God will do away with those things. Well, it is saying that God will do away with those things. But maybe God is going to do away with those things by having us play a part in that. And maybe that's why science, these wonderful things are being revealed by science. He's allowing us to learn these things, and at the same time revealing these things. So anyway, that's a whole nother video's content, and I'm going to upload one of these about every Sunday, and just kind of explain the things that I feel I've come to, because I think a lot of people could benefit from it. And I think we're living in an important time in the history of mankind where we need to be pursuing these things, and not just allowing institutions only to do it. We, the people should do it too, maybe even independent of their governments and independent of the monetary system, so that it's not always, science isn't always tied up in business and in government. So anyway, thanks for listening.